Welcome back to the Tech Factor podcast by Purple Quarter. Today in the house we have Manasvi Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us, Manasvi.
Hello.
Pleasure having you on our show. So before we begin, Manasvi, just wanted to talk to the audience and let them know what you've done so far. So of course you've done your IIT BHU and then you moved on to doing multiple things, right? So I'm just going to take them in a quick.
Yes, it's a long list.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there was email management, then you did middle office, then there was doc exchange system. Of course, from there you went on to platform side of engineering. So you had a string of things that you did. You did fast-sided startups. You did your own gig as well as an entrepreneur,
Yes.
and then went back and climbed the horse of most larger companies, right? So would you be able to tell us one milestone that you reflect upon when you see your own journey, the career journey?
And that's a difficult question, okay? with so many things, I think there are multiple milestones.
Sure.
But I feel, if I look back, and think of the time when I did my entrepreneurship, that kind of changes on, how you look at your, corporate journey as well.
Right.
Because, the kind of resourcefulness that you have to, and it's an imperative to be resourceful, to manage change, to think, how would you get from 0 to 10 or 0 to 100. And those journeys, you typically don't think of very naturally in corporate environments, right? But once you go through that journey, as an entrepreneur, you do something, you have those challenges that, right from picking up boxes to, doing some coding and then meeting investors and everything else in between.
Right.
I think those are the principles that you start applying to your corporate journey as well. So once you get into larger companies or, other startups, as a person, you have changed.
Correct.
Right? And that is also, it's a very virtuous cycle also, right? Like, you start deriving value out of it, and that's superlative value, right? Your, organization also starts to value you, even more, and that's a virtuous cycle, right? So that I would say is an inflection point, right? How you understand your work.
Right. Right. So from an engineering standpoint, I think you have a lot of exposure to the retail side. Yeah, even the startup stint that you did on your own also was an
E-commerce, yeah.
right? My Baby Cart, if I remember the name
Yes,
correctly.
yes.
So if you were to see that versus you got into Flipkart, then there was Coupang, and of course now again another retail, Lowe's, right? So what is it from engineering that you've managed to put in place for multiple of these, from a technology standpoint?
See, I think, and interesting tidbit about my technology journey. I started coding in probably 1985.
1985. How old were you then?
5 years.
5 years.
That tells a lot about my age, but or accurately tells about my age. But 1985 is the first time I picked up, coding. When I was 5 years old. And I have seen, things change drastically from there. You had a 512 KB machine, right? To now. So I think technology keeps changing. And what I've realized over a period of time is that you have to understand the problem. You have to understand the customer pain point and design accordingly.
Right.
Right. See, today, when I was doing, say, My Baby Cart, for example, you had a limited set of customers. Flipkart has probably, 100x, 1000x customers, right?
Right.
Lowe's has an even bigger, scale. But the fundamentals remain the same, right? What is the right technology to solve the customer problem? That's where it ends.
Sure.
Right? The scale changes. Scale demands technology. If you dial back, right, you can pretty much run a retail without any technology if you have 5 customers.
Wow. Okay. Tell us how.
Your mom and pop shops, right?
Right.
They can survive on cash. There are 10 customers. There's just that footfall and you can run it.
Right.
Why you need so much technology is the scale that changes.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
With scale comes multiple customer problems, right? Like I have 100 items to show in a shop. I can display them. Now, in an e-commerce shop, you have only that much space, right? But I have 100,000 products. How do I show? There comes discovery, there comes search. So all those problems are actual customer problems because the scale, the kind of assortment, the kind of service that you want to give to your customers is changing.
Right.
So I think that's how you adopt technology. You change how you think about these problems according to the market, according to the customer. I think that's. But there is still a common element of how you think about the real customer problem.
Sure. So if we were to look at Lowe's in particular, because you're VP Tech there, so would you happen to think that the entire omni-channel retail experience can go away with technology? Do you see that happening? Forget Lowe's, but do you see it happening generally? And then we can probably zoom into Lowe's.
See, I'll give you one very interesting opinion of mine. I feel that omni-channel is a grossly unsolved problem.
Okay.
Now, if you start looking at retail today, you have offline, you have online, right?
Correct.
Now, e-commerce companies, right, from Amazon to Flipkart to pick up anything, right, Coupang. A lot of their shopping experiences are designed around consumables, right?
Correct.
Even when you talk about fashion, for example, there is some bit of experiential aspects to it, but it's still consumable fashion in some sense. Now, there is a limit to which you can extend.
Right.
And those limits are seen by Amazon, those limits are seen by any e-commerce player that is operating, right? In India, I think there is a lot more headroom to grow from an e-commerce standpoint. But at some point, you will hit categories which are high experience, high involvement categories.
Correct.
I feel home is probably top of the stack when it comes to high experience, high involvement. Like, you can get a jacket, you may have a buyer's remorse, you can get another one. You get your flooring done, you have buyer's remorse, you still have to live with it.
Correct. Very true.
So it's a very, very high involvement. It's a very high experience category. And it cannot be solved without a first class Omni experience. I also feel that we haven't thought of Omni experiences in entirety.
Okay.
Like, there is just so much to do. Like, we think of something like buy online, pick up in store, buy in store and get it delivered, those as the Omni experiences. But start thinking of consumer journeys right from inspiration to discovery. Then you may want to go to the store. There is expert opinion. There is your family has to put inputs, your friends do give inputs, then your in the US, you have like the pro, who comes to your house and fixes things.
Correct.
They have to give their technical opinions and so on and so forth, right? So there is a entire life cycle.
Sure.
Have we covered that life cycle? No. Right? Do we have some solutions around it? Absolutely.
Okay.
But I still feel that the stacks which are needed to create those experiences are not yet there.
Understood.
Right? How seamless today your experiences are. I shortlist something digitally. Am I able to visualize things? It's not there.
So you're saying even the VR experience will not be close to what you want to do when you're actually purchasing something for your home.
Those are still underutilized technologies. Very, very underutilized. And one of the reasons, and it has become a not so, cool space right now. But there is a lot of potential because, people haven't, or, companies which are into high experience, high involvement categories haven't really gotten into that zone where, the technologies are easy to adapt. There is widespread applications that you have built, but they will. I think one of the things with VR is that it's very hard to access. For a common consumer, it's relatively hard to access. Like, you need some paraphernalia around it.
Right.
And I think that will change.
Right.
Now, whether that happens in an year's time, 5 years' time,
one can't say.
Yeah. but you will see a lot of investment going into it because there is real business application to it.
Sure. So from a data perspective, right, since you work with companies which have large amount of scale, and we spoke about scale,
Yeah.
and we do talk about data as a new oil for most companies. So tell us a little more from personalization, right? Again, we spoke about how we can't
Yeah.
really look at customers all at one go. But do you think that hyper personalized experiences for customers will be something that we can look forward
Super
to?
important.
Okay,
Super important.
right.
And especially, if you think about, specifically from a retail standpoint and omni experiences, think of yourself as a customer. You go to, sites like House or, wherever you go, you get inspired. You see something else in someone's house, you get inspired.
Correct.
Now you want to walk into the store, you have done some searches and things like that on Lowe's or wherever you are. You walk into the store. Would you want someone to come up to you and say, hey, this is what you were looking for, here is something that you may find interesting, right? That's a beautiful experience, right? That changes how you would look at a store. Or you log on to the site and that someone is suggesting you something, and that's just from a discovery or how we in a very common practice understand hyper personalization, but there's more to it.
Okay.
You are a person whose office is on the other side of the town, right? You have to start early in the morning, but you come early in the evening, right? Maybe you want your deliveries in the evening.
Right.
Right. You have a certain way in which you want your deliveries.
Sure.
Right? You always want an installer with you.
Okay.
Those are kind of preferences, customer preferences, which are really, really valuable.
Sure.
Right? Today, when a delivery comes, it's painful to give an OTP.
Right.
In the middle of a meeting.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Would you really want that? So there are just so many things during the customer journey where you would want a customized experience, where you would want a very, very personalized experience, and that enhances your shopping experience tremendously.
Sure.
There's another point, and there's a, sort of a, school of thought where personalization is a very machine-driven thing.
Correct.
Right? So if I'm doing personalization, I cut out people.
Yeah.
I feel that's taking it, that may or may not cut the, cut the butter with your customers.
Okay.
Right? Because if you are, shopping is also a very personal experience. And a lot of us have experienced this, that, the bounce back after COVID. You really want to go offline.
Yeah.
You really want to, it's a therapy, right? You
Sure.
connect with shopping. And I think everything, if you start doing, from a machine-driven personalization, that's also, something which I don't think will fly through. There is a place for, people in the store, how much assistance they are getting from machines to actually customize the experience.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
So I think there is that bridge which is still, unsolved for, how much technology assisted personalization you actually get.
Sure. So, but when so many things are happening offline, may I call it offline,
Yeah.
outside of technology, how do you tend to stitch the customer preferences, their habits into technology?
That's the key, right? Where I was, to your earlier question when we were talking, that the stacks for Omni-channel are still getting prepped.
Okay.
Right? So how do you share data? Right? How is that data accessible to you when you're digitally browsing something?
Correct.
Or you're on some other channel, you're calling up customer care, you're walking into a store, or, even if you're looking at your car screen, for that matter, right? There are just so many touch points today.
Right.
I was reading some data in 2002. There were around two touch points on an average that a customer used to go through. Today, the average customer goes through 6 touch points.
Wow.
Right. So a lot has changed. You're driving in a Tesla, for example. You have these, charging stations. They'll let you know that, which charging station you need to go, etc. Think of a world that, you were browsing a sofa and you're passing by a store. And if your car could tell that, hey, you can take a detour for 5 minutes and actually see that sofa physically.
Sure.
How powerful is that?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
So there are so many touch points, and I think those platforms which connect, data coming in or data captured while you are browsing, while you are in store, while you are on some other channel, and how to personalize whenever you have a touch point. I think that's the key.
Excellent. So Manasvi, is there also, I'm not sure if Lowe's has this already or you guys are building this, but most things that you buy for home, you get inspired by looking at your friends' homes or anywhere that you go, like you like a carpet or you like the tiles that have been laid out. So do you have like, you can take click a pic and
So Lowe's has a lot of, these, visual features, so to speak, right? So you can have visual searches, you can visualize your room, you can measure your room, you can pretty much lay out, what your room will look like or your space will look like. So there are a lot of those tools. And then, you can actually physically walk and see and feel those things as well, right? So sometimes you may like the color of a carpet, but, when you touch it, you don't like the feel of it.
Correct.
After all, you'll have to walk on that carpet at some point. So you may as well, just feel it.
Sure.
So I think those experiences we definitely tie together.
Okay.
A lot of attempt, we have a fairly large engineering team and product teams out in the US and India. And I think a large portion of those teams actually are dedicated in building the, stacks behind it.
Right.
You can create so many other things, so many other experiences out of it. But then, fundamentally, how do I process data? How do I make sure that people are happily giving their preferences and data, right? That's the other challenge that, you can't just pick up third-party data or, first-party data. So how do you actually get to a point where people are really parting with their preferences because they feel that, if they do that, they will find value.
Sure.
Right? So a lot of that aspect is, what we do on a daily basis.
Great. So this is a lot focused on your customer needs. As I'm looking at
Absolutely.
it. Great. So just one piece of, you said you have a large team, tech and product team here and also in the US. Could you talk a little bit about the tech culture?
We have a 7,000 people team.
Sure. And could you talk about how the teams are in India, the culture? So people watching the show, if they want to come and join your team, it'll give them a little access to what they need to look for.
So think of it as a very well-resourced startup, right? Let's put it that
Sure.
way. Things are at a breakneck speed, and I've worked in many companies, but seldom you come across a very large company. We have revenues north of $90 billion.
Wow.
And in the last 4 years, I think we have grown from 70 billion to 90 plus billion dollars, right? So, to actually bring that kind of a growth to a company which is already an extremely large company means that there has to be a very well-oiled machine.
Correct.
Right? Tech teams, I don't see a difference, really if you go in a very early stage startup to where we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only thing that differs is that the canvas is extremely large.
Okay.
So you have a lot of opportunity.
Sure.
You have a lot of resources as well. So if you want to experiment, do that. And as I said, right, I think Omni is a very unsolved problem. So it's you have a lot of interaction with the business. You actually see stuff. And you have 1,800 stores to actually experiment it,
Wow. Okay.
right? So very, very quick turnarounds, very, very quick, you have to fail fast, get out, and a lot of fun.
Sure.
So it's also, I would say, it's a very positive culture as well.
Right.
So, um, a lot of places you will land up, and especially large companies, you mess up with something. There is, say, revenue loss or whatever it is, right? And it's a very punishing culture. A lot of places that you see. Lowe's is very different from that standpoint, right?
Okay.
So, failure is okay. It's rather encouraged because you,
Nice.
sort of don't go down that path again. So that way, I feel that there is, a lot of room for error and hence a lot of room for experimentation.
Excellent.
There are some fantastic projects that have been built from, say, India, for example. Like, couple of years back, someone wanted to experiment, actually 2.5 years back, someone wanted to experiment and say that, the self-checkout machines are too expensive. They were coming from a vendor. And people thought that, shall we build it?
Okay.
So, and with 1,800 stores and probably, 5 or 6 machines in each store, it's a lot of footprint. Not only they built the machine
Okay.
through commercially available commodity hardware,
Okay.
they were able to build a complete operating system on top of it.
Wow.
Right. Today, 1,400 stores have self-checkout machines, which can be centrally controlled, healed. They are a fraction of cost.
Oh, wow.
We can use any payment method. So think of the journey that 2 or 3 years back you think about it, and today they are in 1,400 stores. That's breakneck speed.
Oh, that's big.
Like, I can bet that most companies do not see that speed. Like, most startups do not see that speed.
Sure. Right. Wow, that's great. So we're going to leave your social handles for people to reach out to you. I'm sure you're hiring. So for
Yes,
both your tech
yes,
and
yes,
product,
yes,
so
yes.
and your data side, hopefully. So
Yes,
we'll leave your handles there. So moving along from Lowe's, right? Would also want to touch upon one favorite topic of mine,
Sure.
which is product versus technology. Yeah, and you've managed to do both, right?
Right.
And this is my thought process that I feel that both of these things can operate as different functions and sometimes can operate together depending on what scale of operations that we're looking at. Yeah, so I want you to tell me what has worked for you because you've played both the roles.
Pardon me for being, on both sides of the spectrum. I still manage product and engineering, so I have to
Sure,
talk about
sure.
both. But see, the way I look at it is this, that, product has to solve for the customer.
Correct.
Product has to look forward and ahead, right? From a business perspective, from wherever, right? Now, there comes a time when, there are technologies and, I feel that there's always that opportunity where new technologies give you new opportunities, right? So it's a very hand-in-hand thing, right? I know that my customer needs this. I cannot build it today. It's very expensive,
Correct.
right? Now, technology comes and changes things, right? You have all these, data technologies that are out there. How hard it was, 15 years back or 20 years back to do simple analytics on data, right? I've lived that world and I know that. It was really hard.
Sure.
Today, it probably would take me 15 minutes to do it.
15 minutes.
Yeah, like, just take up a data set and, get some insights out
Sure.
of it. That is how technology would lead.
Right.
And I can solve so many more problems.
Sure.
Right? So it's a very hand-in-hand process. I don't think that, one versus the other trumps.
Okay. But with large scale, do you think the two can exist together in one
Actually,
function?
more so.
More so?
More so.
Okay.
Because with large scale, a lot of problems that you're trying to solve as business or, you are thinking of, from a product standpoint, you don't find enough and easy solutions.
Right.
I think it's best to sit with, the engineering teams to brainstorm.
Right.
Right? Once you brainstorm, you would know that, hey, this is something which is available and I can do this.
Correct. Interesting. So from a, from an outsider view of the world and looking at how product has shaped in India, right? There are very few, okay, I hope people don't beat me up for this, but there are very few people who actually know how to visualize a product. Also, maybe owing to the reason that we haven't built too many products from the scratch and scaled it to a level that, we're in that place. So, Manasvi, I want you to help me understand, how did you develop this trait?
First of all, I'll disagree.
Okay.
No, I am very, I'm very bought in and passionate about this part.
Right.
And I agree to your statement that, couple of decades back, if I have to look at it, product was not a huge function in India. But I feel that today you have world-class product managers out here, or product thinkers out here, right? And it's a very natural evolution curve.
Okay.
At some point, or IT or the computer industry in India started more from an engineering standpoint.
Correct.
So you get requirements, you get something, and you code against them. Eventually, you had some bit of startup ecosystem, or some of the large companies started doing some product work. But largely, I think it was automating business workflows. It still happens. Pretty much business will tell you that, hey, do this, and you do this, right? So, and you just translate it for the engineers.
Correct.
And that's...
You're executing, basically.
You're executing, right?
Yeah.
But, there also has been a very sizable, product community which has actually evolved in India. Given, how a lot of startups have come up, right? Flipkart alone, I would say that, would have produced, I don't know, hundreds of brilliant product managers. Right? Flipkart is a very, very product-led company. And so are many, many others, right? Like the entire unicorn ecosystem in India, non-unicorn ecosystem in India, as well as actually larger companies, because, companies like Lowe's or, Targets and the retailers, and, all of them have very strong product practices out of India, right? They have been building, visualizing products out of India and shipping them out, Microsoft's and, a lot of other big companies.
Sure.
So I don't really see, dearth of product talent today in India. Good talent is hard to come by, but that goes with any function.
Correct. Okay. Thank you for disagreeing and giving your pointers.
Yes.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yes.
But moving along, Manasvi, I want you to talk a little bit about, I know your leadership style, right? You're a very fun-loving person to work with. I wish I was an engineer. I would have worked with you for sure, right? And I want you to
may not have been so fun for you.
Wow. Okay.
Coding skills. Nothing else.
All right, got it. So, would you want to talk about a little about your style when it comes to people who wish to work with you? So, what generally do you optimize for?
I think for me, there are a few things which are important, right? And there's one life principle I go with, and that's something that I also look for. You can call it a bias.
Okay.
But for every one thing you don't know two things.
Sure.
Right? So how eager you are to learn, then just have fun, right? I think if you are in that zone, you will pick up problems, you will see things which other people aren't, you will innovate, you will work hard.
Right.
So I think that's how, I see things.
Sure.
All in all, I feel you should never, get out of your bed and say that, I don't want to go to office today, or, I don't feel like working.
Right.
It has to be, a fun activity. It's just something that you live and breathe. You feel good. That's where work should be.
Wow. It's a good way to look at things. No wonder the positivity that you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
That comes quite with you. So
Exactly.
naturally. All right. So would you be able to, your 2 cents or advice or suggestion you like to give to technologists or, budding entrepreneurs, whatever you feel like?
I think two things, right? Um, Especially for entrepreneurs and even practicing technologists, there is a lot of need for people to absorb information which is coming, an outside in view, right? So look around, not only to your industry, but to several industries.
Okay.
Right? So, the ways of working, ideas, how people have solved different problems. It's always enriching. And I feel that that's one area I see that people don't put very conscious effort.
Okay.
That's one. The second is find the fine balance between, being very data driven and, being intuitive.
Okay.
Both serve well, but you have to balance that out. Right? Some people are visionary, they do not root themselves in data. Some people are extremely data driven, they only progress in baby steps. Right? So I think the fine balance between the two is really, really important. And that will hold you in good stead whether you are a practicing engineer, practicing product person, or an entrepreneur.
Wow. So that's a good advice for me as well. But if you were to tell me, what is the trick in balancing the two?
You will swing.
Okay.
See, you will swing, but see, there's a natural instinct. I feel that, some people are just intuitive.
Correct.
Right? For you to suddenly become very data driven, or if you're extremely data driven, to suddenly become
intuitive.
visionary or
Right.
intuitive,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Correct.
I think what becomes important is what kind of people you surround yourself with. So there's always that bias that I want people like myself into the room. You need to make sure that you are actually complementing your skill.
Correct.
Right?
True.
And that's the best way to learn, how to ground yourself in data, or, how to actually swing and think, ahead of time.
Oh, beautiful advice. Thank you so much, Manasvi. Thanks for being on the show. Really
My
enjoyed
pleasure.
having a
My
conversation
pleasure.
with you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.